Grayling and the disability campaigner Sue Marsh. Thanks for coming in, both of you. Let's start with Liam Byrne then, Chris Grayling. He accused you of crossing the line of decency. Is it more important for you to save money, even if you face that kind of accusation?
Well, I think he's just plain wrong, and I think that the Labour Party last week, Liam Byrne personally was talking about the need to take tough decisions on welfare. This week he's doing just the opposite. And let's be clear about what we're not doing. We are not taking away benefits from people who have no other income. We are not taking away benefits from people who are not going to be able to work again. We are making changes for people who've got another income or have got thousands of pounds of savings in the bank.
Sure.
So that's the principle of what we're doing.
And that was presumably understood pretty well by those in the Lords. Lord Patel, though, saying he is sympathetic to cutting the deficit, but highly sympathetic to something that will make the lives of weak and vulnerable people even more miserable. I mean, this is why it's being shouted down now.
Well, if you take the example of one of the amendments last night on young people, what we've got is a situation right now where if a young person reaches adult life and they have other financial means, they could receive, for example, a substantial inheritance, they're still able to unconditionally receive benefit support for an ongoing period. Now, if they're never going to be able to work, the situation won't change for them. But if they are in a position where, with the right help, and through our work programme, we've put in place specialist support to help people who've got the potential to return to work to do so, then I don't think it's right that somebody who's got other financial means should depend on taxpayers who are on relatively low incomes themselves very often to pay the money to help people who've already got money themselves.
And Sue Marsh, what's so wrong with that?
What that amendment was actually about, we felt, was that children who were born profoundly disabled, who might not be able to work when they get older, should have an entitlement when they reach adulthood to an independent income. They shouldn't have to rely on parents or family to look after them. If you're born that profoundly disabled, you should have an income in your own right.
But for those children in a position where they'll never work, they'll be on employment support allowance in what's called the support group, which is something we've increased in size. We're providing more long-term unconditional support than the previous government. Then those people won't be in a different position. Their situation will remain unchanged.
I mean, it's very easy, isn't it, to demonise the government over such an emotive issue as this, when the government has clearly stated that for cases of long-term chronic illness, the support group will not change its benefit structure. This is only about people who presumably you would want to see getting back to work.
First of all, we don't think enough people are going into the support group. That's one of the big flaws with employment and support allowance. We don't feel that enough people with long-term conditions are getting that unconditional support.
So that's not about an actual an amendment to a reform?
No, the amendments to the reform yesterday, I mean, we were sitting there watching the debate, and one of the debates about was how terminally ill you have to be to qualify for benefits. You know, being terminally ill for 6 months, that was okay. You would get some support, unconditional support. If you were terminally ill for 3 years or 4 years, you weren't going to get that support. I find it shocking that I'm living in a country where I sit there and hear ministers or lords arguing over how terminally ill you have to be to get benefits.
If you didn't have the deficit problem, would you still want to bring about this kind of reform anyway?
We'd certainly still want to change the welfare state and make it much more relevant to our core objective, which is to help people back into work and disable people back into work, and it's a key goal. And the point about the support group, the long-term group who do receive unconditional support from the state, we've grown that in the past year. It's bigger than it was when we took office. We've introduced changes that are consciously intended to make sure we provide better support for people, for example, who've got long-term mental health problems. But yes, of course, we're having to take tough decisions because of the deficit. We've got to do that across a whole range of different areas. And yes, there are things we are having to do which we would rather not have to do, but we think we're trying, and we're certainly trying to get the balance right.
And it would be very easy, wouldn't it, to say once somebody has been classified as disabled or a chronic sufferer, they need never be assessed again. That might not be helping either the state or the individual.
That wasn't what the debate was about, though, yesterday. We weren't talking about assessments. One of the other votes that failed was for a 1-year time limit on employment support allowance. Not for the people who go into the unconditional group, but for the people who are judged to be unwell, unfit to work, but maybe can get back to work with the right support. Now, when ESA was originally designed, they thought that it would take between 2 and 5 years for those people with the right support, and that's the key thing, to get back into work.
I mean,
now, introducing a 1-year time limit means that someone like me, who's been ill for 27 years, I am now going to be, after 1 year, if I don't go into that support group, entirely dependent on my husband, who doesn't earn very much, to survive.
But you heard there are increasing numbers of people on disability benefit now. They don't want to live on it. They want to come off it, presumably,
That's
and be
fantastic.
back at work.
That's absolutely fantastic. No problem with that at all.
But do you see the
people who are happy
problem
with that,
if there is no kind of means assessment at all?
no one's calling for no assessment at all, I don't think. I don't think anybody's called for no assessment. I think we need a fair assessment. I think we need an assessment that looks at people's conditions individually. I don't think we can have a tick-box system of 15 questions where you sit in front of somebody and they just go through the questions and say, you have to fit this rigid
Chris
system.
Grayling, we've seen a lot of U-turns already from your government. Successive governments have tried and failed on welfare reform. You've already been defeated in the Lords. You've got legal challenges with the unemployment benefit cuts. You're starting to realise why nobody ever manages to do this.
We're going to do this. This is part of a transformation of our welfare state that is really necessary. In many of our communities, we've now got long-term endemic worklessness that has gone from generation to generation. We have an appallingly low level of people with disabilities in work. What we've done through our Revolutionary New Work programme, a payment by results basis, we've got organisations that are delivering personalised support to get people into work from long-term benefit dependency. They have the freedom to do what works, but we only pay them when they're successful, and that's a really big step forward.
And you sound very certain that you will pull this off. We've already heard David Cameron hint that child benefit might be re-looked at. His words were, we always said we'd look at the steepness of the curve, look at the way it's implemented. This was something that you introduced at the Tory conference before last. The Telegraph is leading on this rethink of child benefit cuts. That's going to change now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, first of all, in terms of our welfare reforms, there's no U-turn planned. I'm in the position where child benefit's done by the Treasury as part of the budget preparation, so I don't know what they're doing because I'm in a different department.
Would you be surprised if we saw a rethink on child benefit?
I'd be surprised if we saw a major U-turn on child benefit, but
well, you wouldn't call it a major U-turn. Would you be surprised if there was a change to that policy now?
We will always, with every policy, try and implement it in as sensible a way as possible, but I've heard nothing to suggest that we're about to change direction massively on child benefit. But the Prime Minister said he will be careful and thoughtful about how we do it and try and make changes as effectively and efficiently and fairly as possible.
Thank you both very much.